As we approach the lazy days of summer, the American economy finds itself at an intriguing crossroads. The latest employment data provides a fascinating paradox: a cooling labor market amid resilient economic demand. It's a delicate dance that has profound implications for everyday Americans as well as the policy mavens in Washington. Let's start with the headline numbers from the June jobs report. Payrolls in the U.S. grew by an estimated 190,000 last month, according to economists surveyed by Bloomberg. That's a marked step down from the 272,000 gain in May, hinting that employers are tapping the brakes on hiring amid broader economic uncertainty. The unemployment rate held steady at 4%, still remarkably low by historical standards. But wage growth also decelerated, with average hourly earnings up 3.9% from a year ago, the smallest annual increase in 3 years. It seems companies are finally getting some relief from the steep pay hikes that had been squeezing profit margins. These are welcome signs for Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell and his inflation-fighting colleagues. A gradual cooling of the overheated labor market, without an outright economic seizure, is just what the central bank has been hoping to engineer with its aggressive interest rate hikes over the past year. The Fed's goal is to ease rampant price pressures without sending the job market into a tailspin or the economy into recession. It's a deft high-wire act that Powell himself has acknowledged will be a challenge to pull off successfully. But the June employment snapshot at least suggests the so-called soft landing remains a possibility. Digging deeper, we find other signs the historically tight U.S. labor market is losing some steam. Job openings have been declining, with economists forecasting the number dropped below 8 million in May for the first time since early 2021, based on data out this week. Higher weekly jobless claims point to ebbing labor demand as well. Paradoxically, this labor market loosening is happening amid indications the broader economy remains sturdy and consumer spending relatively solid, if lethargic. While off its blistering pandemic pace, the job market is still healthy enough to sustain economic growth despite soaring interest rates aimed at squelching demand. This seeming contradiction, a cooling job market amid resilient overall activity, underscores the puzzle policymakers face in their quest to tame inflation without killing off the economic expansion. It highlights the two-sided nature of the Federal Reserve's mission. On one side is the imperative to ease widespread inflationary pressures that have been eroding living standards and sparking rampant economic insecurity for millions of American families. Stubbornly high inflation has become a moral and political crisis, not just an economic one. But on the other side is the danger of going too far with rate hikes, snuffing out the job creation machine that has given workers some of their strongest bargaining power in decades. An over-aggressive Fed could extinguish the flickering flames of an economic recovery that, for all its flaws, has at least coaxed employment back from the abyss of the COVID recession. For those in struggling regions and marginalized communities, economic stability and job availability have been rare and precious commodities over the past generation. The fear of inflicting avoidable economic carnage through overzealous Fed actions looms large. So what's a pragmatic central banker to do? Lean too hard into fighting inflation and a punishing economic downturn could ensue. But allow price pressures to fester and the threat of a self-perpetuating inflationary psychology takes root, breeding yet more economic instability down the line. The June employment report landed like a raft in these untamed policy waters, offering equal reassurance and unease. It validated the Fed's rate hike campaign is gradually working as intended to stabilize prices and restore an economic equilibrium. Yet it also highlighted the fragility of the job market and underscored how easily the recovery could be capsized. As a divided nation grapples with economic insecurities and dwindling social trust, the stakes riding on Powell's policy judgment could hardly be higher. His rhetoric in the days ahead at the European Central Bank's Policy Forum in Sintra, Portugal, will be closely parsed for clues on where interest rates are headed next. For better or worse, deeply human factors like mass psychology, institutional credibility, and social cohesion are inextricably linked to these arid economic indicators. The fate of Powell's war on inflation ultimately rests on the same fragile qualities, public confidence, solidarity, and emotional reserves, that have frayed so severely across American life over the past turbulent years. The June jobs report encapsulated this grand collision between cold economic data and the warmer human experiences that underpin it all. It was a snapshot of the competing challenges we face of tackling chronic economic anxieties without subtracting society's few remaining pillars of security and stability in the process. In that sense, perhaps we should count ourselves lucky to be grappling with such a paradox. The alternative, an economic backslide into freefall, is one cruel fate Americans have seen too much of already in recent decades. For now, we walk the knife's edge, awaiting Powell's next fateful move as the jobs paradox endures.